Let's see. Our next witness is Marianne Devine.
Hi, I'm Marianne Devine.
And you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true?
I do.
Okay.
I wrote, as you see on my written statement, I wrote "Good morning." I was wishful thinking, but we still have more people to hear from, so I'm glad
it's
to be
morning
here.
somewhere.
Yes.
So you also come from the state of that surrogate judge.
Yes. My name is Marianne Devine. The name I was given by my loving parents, Geraldine and Donald Devine, at 8 months of age. Prior to that, I was Mary Byrne, a name given to me by my mother, Mary, who made the best choice she could for me under the circumstances in 1962. I thank all of them for the life that I have lived. I was born in the Bronx. I've lived on Long Island for most of my life, except for a few years that I lived in Buffalo. I went to SUNY undergrad and graduate school. I am a proud New Yorker, and I am proud to be here today, and I thank you for granting me the opportunity to speak. I'm sorry. It's the hormones and the time of the day. I wish to speak to you today to advocate for legislation to allow adult adoptees access to their original birth certificate. I have many reasons for this, but due to time constraints, I will share my two most important reasons with you. The first reason is personal. In 1991, I requested from the agency that I was adopted through, the New York Foundling Hospital here in New York City, for my non-identifying and medical information. After filling out forms and paying a process fee, I was sent information regarding biological family history that was in their records. And social workers, office workers, administrative assistants, supervisors were all allowed free access to view my personal information, but I was not. In 1996, in order to claim my dual status citizenship as an Irish citizen, you're allowed that if you have a parent or grandparent that was born there. It was necessary for me to request that the foundling send proof to the Irish consulate that I was eligible to receive this. At that time period, you needed to prove blood lineage, even though my paternal adoptive family was of Irish-born citizens, and I should have been eligible through them, as a caveat that I put in there. The Irish consulate has since changed that rule because they realized it was discriminatory. My request was granted by the foundling, and the Record Information Office at the foundling forwarded the necessary information to the Irish consulate. Again, social workers, supervisors, and office workers at the adoption agency, as well as office workers at the Irish consulate in New York and Dublin, were allowed to access my information and my original birth certificate, but I was not. And I know other people have echoed this today, but it's very hard to describe how unsettling and degrading it is to be deemed unfit and unjustified in being allowed to have and see information about myself that others are allowed, but I am not. The second reason that I want to speak to you today is cultural. Again, some of the points that other people have touched on, but I wrote about as well. Part of the beauty of America is that in its continuous evolution and recognition that times have changed. I misread that, sorry. Anyway, I'll start it just because it won't make sense maybe otherwise. Part of the beauty of America is its continuous evolution and recognition that times change. People's attitudes and understanding change, and this is reflected in our laws. There was a time in our history when women were not permitted to vote, but society changed, and so did the laws. There was a time in our history when African Americans were not permitted to vote, but society changed, and so did the laws. There was a time in our history when people of different races were not permitted to share the same drinking fountains, to use the same toilets, or even the same seats on a bus or in a movie theater. But society changed, and so did the laws. We as Americans, and specifically as New Yorkers, because that's the state we're in that we're addressing this for, have grown and changed. The shame and secrecy that once was a part of the adoption experience has changed. We have come out of the shadows, and so must these laws. The time has come. The time is now. Thank you. I also want to speak to, there was talk today about there are biological/birth moms, whichever terminology anybody wants to use, natural moms that do not want to be contacted or not have relationships. I am actually in that category. Both my brother, my adopted brother, and I did search work we both found in the last decade for different reasons. Mine was more philosophical and interest. My biological mother does not want to have a relationship with me. I have respected that because life is funny. One of my friends turned out to be a second cousin, so I was allowed access information about my family without disturbing my bio mom's privacy. So she is aware of this. I wrote her a few times, but I have kept her confidentiality, and I did ask and was granted a request. I wrote to her sister, who was the only other person who knew about me up until about 10 years ago. And so I have not pursued any of that. So it is true that there are adoptees who will maintain confidentiality for their biological relatives if requested. I mean, I'm sure there's people who don't do that, but I am an example of somebody who has. In contrast, my brother, for medical reasons, because he has severely impaired health child, did a search, and he found, my brother had moved to Colorado, and then he had his child, he and his wife, and it ended up his biological mother and two half-siblings lived in Colorado, not far from him. They all met because my brother, paid an agency, and they met, and they get along famously, and his mom babysits for him, and with full appreciation and approval from my mom, who raised us both. So I bring this up to show that there's just so many contrasting stories of what could happen, that to sort of hold that, when they were talking about before with the what ifs, it's just too big a range. So we should stay focused on the records and opening the records. It's kind of the difference between, to me, it's between oranges and orange juice. Like, we've got the oranges. Some people might want to make orange juice out of them. Some people might not. But we should at least be able to have our oranges. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway. But that's my story today. And I thank you so much for allowing us all to be here, because this isn't, we're not changing lots of things to do with the wars that are going on and things like that. But it is making a big impact on people's lives if a law like this can be passed. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.